Welcome to episode 3 of r/AskReddit. We're a new channel, so if you like the video please remember to subscribe and hit the like button. Created by Raunchy Reddits. People who have encountered a real serial killer, or know someone who has. What is your story? My uncle used to work at a 7-Eleven when he was in his early 20s. Apparently, he had a regular customer who would come in almost every morning and buy donuts and a coffee. They'd chat for a while and eventually became somewhat of friends. Fast forward a few months when my uncle is watching the news and sees the guy he chats with every morning had been arrested because he's the goddamn Green River Killer, convicted of at least 48 murders. My mom got a babysitting gig in the 70s, here in Canada, when she was a teenager. She gets there, and the woman says her brother is in the basement, but he's on call so he can't watch the kids. My grandfather comes over to check it out and doesn't like it. He drags her out of there and my mom is beyond embarrassed. Turns out the guy is Clifford Olson, charged a few years later with killing 11 kids and teens. My mom was very close to being one of them. She forgave my grandpa. Not me but my mom. I think my mom was about 8 at the time. Her, my grandma and my baby cousin were at home alone and it was getting late, I wanna say around 11:30 p.m.-ish. My grandma heard a noise come from the back of the house where the bathroom was, so she stood up and out from the hallway comes, who she thought was my uncle. He stood there with his head down and his hair hanging in front of his face. He looked just like my uncle at the time, who was about 18. So my grandma starts yelling at him for sneaking into the house so late and getting mad because he isn't responding. Since my grandma is yelling, my baby cousin wakes up and starts crying. As soon as that happens, my uncle takes off towards the back of the house and crawls out the back window. My grandma calls the cops on him and tells them what happened because she thought he might be on drugs. The cops find all sorts of weird satanic drawings outside the bathroom window where he came in. Turns out it wasn't my uncle, it was Richard Ramirez, aka the Night Stalker. Crazy to think a baby crying would scare someone off like that. My mom encountered Ted Bundy when she worked the night shift at the city of Pensacola City Hall back in 1978. She had to walk from the main building across the parking lot to another building to get some printouts, and noticed the orange VW Beetle he had stolen in the lot. He came walking up to her, arm in a makeshift sling, asking her to help him by taking him to the hospital. She told him she would when she got off work, but he gave her the heebie-jeebies. She called security, but by the time they came down, he was long gone. My mother-in-law is convinced the alphabet killer tried to lure her into his car when she was walking home from school. He offered to give her a ride home, so she pretended the house she'd just reached was hers. Never got the full details as to why she thought it was him, but the geography is right and she isn't one to just make stuff up, so I had no compelling reason to fact-check her story. Not first-hand, but possibly of interest. In elementary school, 5th grade I think, we had a substitute teacher named Mr. Gilmore, who was related to Gary Gilmore. I believe he said they were cousins. We had him subbing a few times in our class, and one day he told us the story about Gary. Said as a kid he liked to kill chickens for fun, by placing a bucket over them, but leaving their head and neck outside, and then sit on the bucket. He said they knew there was something wrong with him. It's interesting to think what a grown-up conversation this was considering our age, and that I already knew who Gary Gilmore was from TV. Years ago my mum had an argument with my dad and left the house upset. She was walking to my uncle's place, which took her on a quiet road. She saw this guy who approached her and told her, "You should be careful, love, don't you know the Ripper is about?" She said she thought it was a bit strange but carried on walking. Anyway, sometime later the Yorkshire Ripper was caught, and when my mum saw his face on the news she said she went cold because it was the exact same guy who had spoken to her that night. Apparently, he used to stash his murder weapons in some undergrowth right near there. We lived about a mile from his house as it turned out. We hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure to subscribe to our brand new channel for more great Reddit readings.